Here we go. Another one. 49ers Packers playoffs. It is Green Bay at San Francisco Saturday night. The biggest storylines, key matchups, and some predictions. How's this thing going to go in the divisional playoff round? All that and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers, Locked On Packers crossover.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another Locked On 49ers and Locked On Packers crossover episode. Appreciate everybody jumping in on this one. All of the everydayers for Locked On Packers, all of the everydayers for Locked On 49ers here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure you guys are all subscribed up on our YouTube channels and everywhere you find your podcasts. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers and Locked On Packers is brought to you, as all crossover Thursday episodes are, by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Woo! Here we go. 49ers Packers. It's going to be fun. And for you Locked On 49ers listeners, the man you love to hate, Peter Bukowski here from Locked On Packers, along with Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker of Locked On 49ers at BD Peacock, at Crocky209, at Peter _Bukowski.
Yep, nailed it.
Yes. Not even on the screen. And I know my guy Peter's at, because he's my guy. And I can't wait to get into this one. Biggest storylines. We got to start there, Peter. Packers, 49ers. What is the biggest storyline for the Packers coming into this divisional round matchup?
I mean, it's got to be how hot their offense is. I mean, they hang 41 on the Dallas Cowboys, nearly matching what the 49ers did early in the season, right? And this last stretch, you look at from week 9 on, I said this on my show this week, pick a metric. Jordan Love is top 3 in all of them. Whether you like the grades, whether you like the advanced metrics, you like traditional stats, doesn't matter. He is at the top, creating touchdowns, avoiding interceptions, the way that he's playing right now. The way that Aaron Jones is running the ball, this is the best 4-game stretch in his career, 476 yards running the ball over the last month, or the last 4 games, and absolutely beat down the Cowboys in all facets offensively. So this offense coming in, can they change the narrative against the 49ers? I mean, we heard Nick Bosa mention it 2 days ago. He said, it's different than Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was a Hall of Famer and an MVP, but he liked to freelance. He liked to play a different kind of way. Jordan Love plays the way that the system is meant to be played. And it was a compliment. He was saying this system works. And I get, like, Shanahan pilled. The 49ers are probably like, yeah, the system does work. Like, we've seen it, like Jimmy G to Brock Purdy. And it was one of those beautiful, like, it was Aaron Rodgers shade a little bit, but it was also complimenting Jordan Love. And I was like, hey, wait a second. This guy's on my corner. Yeah, that's what I do. I compliment Jordan Love and shade Aaron Rodgers. Like, come on, Nick, stay off my corner. But that to me is like, how much can Jordan Love change the narrative here? This is an awesome opportunity playing with house money. So it's going to be fun.
Well, you did, kind of preference how well they're playing right now. And there were a couple losses in December, one to the New York Giants, one to Tampa Bay, probably some that you guys would categorize as not great losses, right? Kind of bad losses there. Yeah. What has been the difference between those 2 games and then what they've looked like going on a 3-game winning streak?
A lot of it is the defense. The defense played one of the worst games I've ever seen the Packers defense play. And remember, in 2011, they were a historically bad defense. So, like, I've seen plenty of bad defense from the Green Bay Packers, but that Buccaneers game, as bad as I've ever seen them play. And then the Tommy DeVito game, I mean, Jordan Love goes down at the end. They get the lead, and with less than 2 minutes, you let Tommy Cutlets march down the field on you with ease. March down the field on you and kick the game-winning field goal. Like, just that was a pretty embarrassing moment. It wasn't Jordan Love's best game. But you have to remember that also came after the Lions game and the Chiefs game, where they really took it to 2 of the best teams, 2 of the 8 remaining teams in the NFL playoffs. And so I think for a young team, you're trying to balance the, like, hey, they can beat anybody with, hey, they can lose to anybody, or they can play one of these bad games. And I think that was just, it caught up to them a little bit there. And also Joe Barry. Like, we just know that Joe Barry is not going to be a consistent for the Packers defense coordinator. Now, since then, I have to say, they've been doing some more interesting things, some more 5-man pressures, bringing Quay Walker a bunch. They're playing more man coverage. They're letting Darnell Savage play a little bit more robber. They're going to play man behind. It's that robber stuff that had Jimmy G in fits at times. We'll see how much they want to deploy that against Brock Purdy and what this 49ers offense can do. The other side of this, like, the 49ers haven't played really, and it'll have been 3 weeks since they played a real game. How do you think that will manifest itself in this game?
Yeah, 20 days or so, I think the 49ers will have off. And by the way, Nick Bosa, he's a ball knower. I trust his evaluations about opposing quarterbacks maybe as much as anybody. He talked about Jalen Hurts, how they have a good plan, and they were going to put the blueprint out there on how to beat them. And the Eagles went 1-6 after that. So, and it's funny because I saw a lot of people talking about the Nick Bosa comments, and they're like, "Oh, he gave Jordan Love the game manager." He gave. Did
you read that as shade? Because I didn't. I read it as like I felt like a compliment to me.
I felt the same way. So I went to listen to it thinking he was dropping shade on him, and I don't think he was at all. He said he's a good quarterback who, accomplishes his goals as a quarterback as his coach wants him to. And when it comes to the coaching, look, I don't cover the Packers every day like you do, Peter, but if I'm not mistaken, Packers fans wanted to move on from the defensive coordinator long ago, and
a year ago,
LaFleur said he was going to maybe have his hands in the defense. Is that part of why the defense is playing better? Because LaFleur's now in charge of both units?
It's hard to know for sure, right? My concern at the time, and I said this on our show, was like, it's really hard for me to say, hey, Matt LaFleur, take some time away from trying to coordinate the youngest offense in football that you're doing a pretty good job at to fix something that you're paying a guy to do. Please, have a defensive coordinator that you trust to just go do the thing. But that hasn't happened. This offense, if anything, has taken off since they've had to do that. 30 plus against Carolina, 30 plus against the Vikings. They didn't score as many against the Bears, but they had 432 yards of offense in that game. 17 was probably the fewest points they were going to score in a game. They really only had 5.5 true possessions in that game. And then, of course, 41 against the Cowboys. It's been a marked difference. And we saw last week, and I thought this was a really interesting tweak. I'm fascinated to see how they want to approach this 49ers team. But they didn't match with Jair Alexander on CeeDee Lamb. And part of that is because they didn't know if they were going to have Jair Alexander. But for most of the first half, when the game was still in doubt, right? It was 27-0 at one point in the second quarter. They had, regardless of the call, whoever was to CeeDee Lamb's side pressed up. They didn't always press, but he was within 2 or 3 yards at the line of scrimmage almost every single time he lined up on the outside. It's a little bit harder. Croc knows, harder in the slot to try and to get those sort of the press from the slot is nearly impossible. So that was an interesting wrinkle against the Vikings, against the Bears. They're showing these 5-man pressure looks and playing man coverage behind it. That wasn't part of their DNA for most of the season. So they've shown some wrinkles. I don't know how much of it is Matt LaFleur and how much of it is Joe Barry. But it's hard not to notice, as you mentioned, the difference since Matt LaFleur said that.
I definitely want to ask you, maybe we can do it on the other side after we do the segments and all that. But we talk about storylines. I think a big storyline with what the Packers have going on right now is the ascension of the young pass catchers. I mean, the youngest group of pass catchers in the league: Musgrave, Kraft, Reed, Dobbs, Watson, obviously, Dontario Wicks, who Peacock and I were both fans of him coming out. And I mean, just how well they've played as of late. So I can't wait to kind of dive into those players and how they've gotten better throughout the year. Absolutely.
That young Packers offense. We'll get into that next. And I thought Croc was about to go off on jam versus press there for a second. But we're going to get into some of the defensive side of the ball.
I would have went too long. I would have got a little too long-winded with that one.
That's the thing. They're not jamming, but they're pressed up. So
there you go.
Press alignment.
Yep, press alignment. Jam is getting your hands on it. We gotta have the right terminology here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Next, key matchups: Brock Purdy, Jordan Love. How about the matchup between Shanahan and LaFleur, old buddies, and some predictions? Next. The next segment of this episode is brought to you by our sponsor, BetterHelp. And sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off our chest, big or small, certain things that really start to get to you. And it can start small and end up big. It's important to let that out, especially to someone who's unbiased on your life. So today I want to say how I really feel about something. You might even be thinking about the same thing this week. And for me, it's my friends over there in the Green Bay area that might need someone to talk to after this weekend's football games. But seriously, whether it is football that some of us maybe take a little bit too seriously, and we need to get that out and get it off your chest. And I know we have therapy pods here for that very reason. Talk to a professional about whatever it is in your life, whether it is your favorite football team or more important things like family life or your job. Therapy can be so different for everyone. And most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports teams. And it's important to get those things off your chest every once in a while. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your specific schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Okay. That young offense, Peter, how has that come together? And I know it's been a little bit up and down, but I mean, with all of the first rounders on the defensive side of the ball, and that's been the problem. And then you got mid-round wide receivers and a young quarterback in his first year getting a chance to be the guy and a starting quarterback following a Hall of Famer. And the offenses look better than it has in some of those recent seasons with that Hall of Famer. And as Nick Bosa pointed out, maybe a little bit different. So how did that all come about?
It has been a process. And that is just like, if you guys had watched, I'm sure a lot of your audience watched the Monday night game against the Raiders, where Jordan Love, 3 interceptions. And it was just sort of like, what is this? Guys not running the right routes. There have been multiple times when Jordan Love has gone to throw an RPO screen and there's no one running the screen on the RPO screen. Like, it happened 2 weeks ago, like in a must-win game, it happened. And so you're still, every once in a while you get those like, oh, okay, that's an obvious missed assignment by someone. But it's kind of a remarkable job by Brian Gutekunst to bring in these guys. You mentioned it's not first, like they don't take receivers in the first round. It's just not a thing Green Bay does. And still they found Jaden Reed, who set a Packers rookie receiving record, led the team in receiving on a top 10 offense on a playoff team. Like that is pretty, like, do you know who had the Packers receiving record for a rookie? Sterling Sharp in 1988. That was the last time that they had a rookie do this. And it's Sterling freaking Sharp, who, if he doesn't get hurt, we're talking about as one of the greatest to ever do it at that position. So Luke Musgrave, he was going to break that record if he had stayed healthy. He lacerates his spleen, unfortunately, late in the season, but he's back now. They saw him run leak against Dallas, a play that both of these teams know well. The 49ers run it as well as any team in the league when they want to. Kyle Shanahan kills teams on that play. Whenever he calls it, it's like he's got a magic touch with that one. It's hard to really say enough about what this young team has done developmentally. I was actually talking to our buddy Eric Eager over at Sumer Sports, formerly of Pro Football Focus. I was like, can you find me an example of someone who from the first half to the second half has been this different in terms of Jordan Love, the quarterback? And he was like, yeah, it doesn't seem like there is a comp for someone who has been essentially playing like the best quarterback in the league over the last 8 weeks versus what we saw in the first 8 weeks. That has been, to me, the biggest difference. Yeah, guys are getting aligned better, and they can finally run stick. Thank God, because that was like they messed up stick like 16 times this season, I swear. And it's like the most basic route combination you can run. And it's just Jordan Love is playing better, and there's a confidence in this team. And there was a great line, guys. Matt LaFleur after the Vikings game, they're 2-5. They lose that one, and Matt LaFleur was asked about this young team, and he goes, "What do you mean? It's been 8 weeks. There's no that's an excuse. We expect these guys to go out and perform." And it seemed like he kind of just said, screw it. Let's just go play. Forget being conservative. Forget worrying about mitigating the mistakes. Let's just go play. And these young receivers have responded. They did not have a 100-yard receiver until week 17. They've now had 3 straight, and it's all been 3 different guys: Bo Melton, Romeo Doubs, and Jaden Reed. Bo Melton, who they picked up off the Seahawks practice squad, and he's just been like a revelation for them. It's remarkable what they've been able to do. And from a matchup standpoint, going back to our point about Nick Bosa, the 2021 game plan was cloud Devontae Adams and make Rodgers find someone else, get through your progression, get to 2 to 3. Now they couldn't a lot because Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead were just like collapsing Dennis Kelly and Billy Turner into Aaron Rodgers' lap. But this is an egalitarian form of offense, and it's really fun to watch right now. I'm interested to see how the 49ers decide to defend this team, because there is no, hey, let's take away Devontae Adams and see what happens. Like, good luck. It's everybody. They can all beat you.
One of the biggest storylines for the 49ers in this one is the health and the rest that they've had. And guys like Eric Armstead are going to be out there now, and they're going to be almost 100% healthy. Cleveland Farrell, I think, is the only guy that might not be available to play for the 49ers in this one. But the other part of that is Brock Purdy. And Kyle Shanahan said this week that it wasn't a bye week for Brock Purdy. And if he played last week, or if he played in week 18 of the season, he was going to play the first half and sit after that anyway. So basically it's 2 quarters less of game action that Purdy saw than what he would have seen. And they've been working him hard in practice, and that it hasn't been a bye week for him because of how hard they've worked him in practice. And one correction on what you said earlier, Peter, is that Jordan Love's been playing like the best quarterback in the league. The second half has been playing like the second best quarterback in the league, because 49ers, Brock Purdy versus Love, I think it's going to be a fun conversation. And I think for both of these teams, that's where the ceiling goes up and down, is the quarterback play. And that's why the 49ers team right now, this is the best version of these teams that the Packers have seen in the playoffs recently.
You think this is the best version of the 49ers that they've seen?
Yes, and it's because of the ceiling that the quarterback provides, because Purdy is playing that well, and they're still really good everywhere else. Croc, you agree? The best 49ers?
Got a big smile on his face.
Well, I was looking at Peter, and I don't think Peter agrees.
It does not. So the weird thing, I think this is like my Wisconsin sports fan will understand this. It's a little bit like the Bucs this year, where they're such a great offense, but the defense stinks, and we're so used to it kind of being the other way around. Like, I think this 49ers defense is still really good, but they just don't strike me as the same level that those other defenses from an offensive standpoint scared me more. But this offense is so much better that it kind of is like breaking my brain a little bit. I kind of don't know how to process it, because this offense is just like, some of the numbers that they put up are crazy. There was a point at which Brock Purdy was like going to break every efficiency record ever. And it was just sort of like, what is this? I don't even know what to make of it.
What do you attribute that to, Peter? Like, just kind of as someone away from the 49ers, because we can give our thoughts, and obviously we watch the 49ers play in, play out, week in, week out, and we have our thoughts on it. But from the outside perspective, who is also responsible for watching a lot of what's going on around the league, when you see the 49ers, their offense, you see Brock Purdy, some things he's doing, what comes to your mind in the sense of like how exactly they're doing it?
I don't know that there's precedent for it. I really don't. Like, it could be the case that he turns out to just be Kurt Warner, like, and he's just really this good, Brock Purdy. I think we know Kyle Shanahan is an incredible play caller, play designer, in a way that maybe like Mike Martz wasn't. Although the rest of the league tried to steal all the Mike Martz stuff for years after that, and it didn't work for anybody else because they didn't have Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce and Marshall Faulk and Kurt Warner,
and they had a chance to see it and prepare.
Right, and I think that there's a little bit of that here, where, okay, other teams are running this effectively, but they're not running it as effectively as this team because they don't have Christian McCaffrey, they don't have George Kittle, they don't have Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and Juwan Jennings, and this chess piece of Trent Williams, who they can, like, I've never seen an offensive lineman who can affect the game script the way that he can, who can affect the game plan the way he can, because of his ability to do things on the move and use him almost like a second tight end in a lot of ways, that you can just like, hey, just block this outrageous thing over here that no one else can do because you're a freak of nature. That's just a different kind of thing. It's sort of like everyone wanting to play like the Legion of Boom, but you don't have Earl Thomas and KJ Wright and Bobby Wagner and Richard Sherman. And I think that that's a little bit of it, but we have seen other teams. We're seeing the Packers right now. They're a top 5 offense and they're running a similar kind of scheme, but they don't have Christian McCaffrey. They don't have George Kittle. And so I kind of don't know what to make of it. I think Brock Purdy is better than I have given him credit for, certainly. But I also think that the way to beat this team, oddly, is to get Brock Purdy to make some mistakes. And they are, I believe, 4-5 in games where they have where they don't get at least 2 turnovers. And that's the other part of this is the defense is getting turnovers. And that's setting them up on short fields and allowing them to be even more efficient offensively. That's a huge part of this. I'm wondering from your perspective, guys, like the turnovers, you look at the Bengals game, 2 interceptions, the Vikings game, 2 interceptions. I think he had multiple turnovers in every loss this year. He didn't play in the last game, except the Browns game. He threw a pick and fumbled, but they got it back. Like, let's say it's raining. This was a part of the conversation after Baltimore, right? He got little hands, maybe a little bit. Can he hold on to the ball? Like, is there some concern there? Like, isn't that the biggest thing that you're worried about? Like, you get the bad Brock?
I would say for me, it is bad Brock being able to overcome being bad, right? Yeah. And even with Jimmy Garoppolo, for everything that he was or wasn't, he could, he start the fire. And he's like, but don't worry, guys, I can actually put the fire out as well. And Brock so far doesn't start a lot of fires. But when he does start the fire, we haven't seen him able to put the fire out. Now, he was close one game. He got them in range and your kicker missed. But outside of that, it seems like there is kind of a little pressing going on when he gets in a situation where it's a little tight, a little uncomfortable for me. And I know me personally, I've been like, that's the thing I want to see him truly kind of overcome. And I feel like at times it may or may not be against the Packers. It may or may not be in another game this year. Maybe you just blow everybody out. But more times than not, it kind of comes down to really kind of like Kansas City in the Super Bowl against the 49ers. Mahomes throws multiple picks, even throws a pick in the fourth quarter. Looks like they're down and out. And the quarterback says, you know what? Don't worry about it. I played bad. I'm going to fix it right now. I have not seen Brock this year fix when it starts to kind of snowball out of control. And that's something that I would like to see as well. Can he do it? It looks like he can, but it's not something that he's looked comfortable with being that guy this year.
Brock's mentality, despite being not the biggest guy, not the big, strongest arm guy, his mentality is more like Brett Favre. He's a playmaker and he's more of a gunslinger, which might surprise some folks. And he's not a check down Charlie. And I know people think that about him, and that's not it at all. So that's where he does run into some trouble, but it just doesn't happen often enough to where I'm worried about it. And I think next,
is there just nothing you're worried about then, though, Brian? Like that, I guess that's my question. It's like, if you're going to be worried about something, isn't that the thing? Or maybe it's not.
It's a thing that could happen, but it's not something that would keep me up at night. And I'm going to tell you why, guys, next, because I think we got to make
that's a tease
here before we go. This episode of Locked On 49ers and Locked On Packers is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. At the start of the new year, every small business owner is asking themselves the same question: what's the one move I can make to take my small business to the next level in 2024? LinkedIn Jobs knows that your success all depends on the team you surround yourself with, and it's no different than an NFL football team. That's why LinkedIn Jobs has created the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And LinkedIn just isn't some other job board. We're talking about a vast network of more than 1 billion with a B professionals, which makes it the best place to hire, because hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy. In fact, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours at LinkedIn Jobs. So all you got to do and post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. Again, that's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And if you're thinking about going to this Packers 49ers game, check out Gametime. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sporting events, NFL games, music, comedy, theater events near you. Killer last minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and Gametime's best price guarantee. Gametime takes all the guesswork out of buying tickets. Buying tickets shouldn't be a headache. You should be excited for your event, and that's where Gametime comes in. You see the view from your seat. You know exactly what you're getting before you arrive at your event. And my favorite aspect of Gametime is the all-in prices, because I hate the hidden fees. You think you get one price for a ticket, you check out, and guess what? It costs twice as much to go see the game that you're trying to get to. All-in prices show your total upfront, so you know what you're getting, and you know you're getting that great deal before you check out. A couple of taps on the app, those Gametime tickets will be right there in the app for you. You don't have to go fishing through emails when you get to your event. Last minute seats, even up to an hour after an event starts. It's the place for last minute tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The reason I am not worried at all about Brock Purdy playing good, playing bad, throwing interceptions is because I don't think this game's going to come down to Brock Purdy, because I don't think the Packers can stop the 49ers run game. And he might throw 6 passes in this game, and it's not going to be because Kyle Shanahan's trying to avoid letting his quarterback throw. It's going to be because Kyle Shanahan wants to run the ball, and if the Packers can't stop it, and if the Packers can't stop run left behind number 71 that you mentioned earlier, Peter, it's going to be a long day for those Green Bay Packers.
No, come on. It's never in a playoff game. You can't just run the ball the whole time and throw 6 passes. It's never happened. That would never happen. I can't imagine. Why would you think that could be a thing?
Well, because it didn't happen. He actually threw 8 passes. My thing is, what if he
only needed to throw like 1 and it would have been fine. Yeah.
Yes.
What if you have to throw more, right? And where I'm going with this is, I watched a lot of the Dallas Cowboy Green Bay game, and it got away from the Cowboys in a very interesting way. Green Bay goes down, they march down, they score a touchdown, boom, right? Like, okay, that sometimes happens. But then that interception that Dak threw on like that next drive, it wasn't like it was just this terrible decision or just terrible pass, right? Like, it was a receiver that got punked for the spot by a terrific cornerback in Jair Alexander. The next thing you know, they're going in for another touchdown because they're set up in the short field. So for me with the 49ers, I don't foresee a situation where you just turn the ball over a ton and you're giving up all these crazy points. But the way that it happened to the Cowboys is something that I feel like is something that could potentially happen, where you don't foresee that happening. Like, oh man, they drive down and score a touchdown. Like, okay, we're going to do our thing. We're going to be that offense, that efficient. Oh man, Brandon Knight just got punked for the spot by a great cornerback. And now they said, oh, they score again. And that's where the trouble happens. So I do hope the 49ers don't get in that situation. And most teams don't want to be in that. But for whatever reason with the 49ers this year, when they have turned the ball over like that, like, they just lose. But when they don't turn the ball over, unlike a lot of other teams, right? There are teams where they don't turn the ball over and they can still lose the game. Like, the 49ers will not lose if they don't turn the ball over.
I believe that the stat is they're 8-0 this year when they don't turn the ball over. And so that is one. Yeah, they're 8-0 when they don't turn it over. They're 4-5 when they do, and they're 9-1 when they get 2+ takeaways, 3-5 when they don't get 2 or more takeaways. Like, that's kind of wild. That's from Zach Cruz over at Packers Wire. That's the part to me where I think you're both right. Like, if the Packers can't stop Christian McCaffrey, it's going to be really tough. I think that this Packers offense, though, and to my point earlier about this 49ers defense, when Richard Sherman was there in 2019 and the 49ers punked the Packers twice, and we won't talk about what I predicted in either one of those games with Brian. But Richard Sherman said, we knew if we took away the run game, they couldn't beat us. Like, they were like, we didn't fear Aaron Rodgers in 2019. And that, I think this game, this 49ers run defense has just not been the same this year. They're 15th by DVOA. And if you look at the EPA per play numbers, the Packers, who have a bad run defense, actually have a slightly better run defense than the 49ers. The 49ers are 26th in EPA per play. Now, part of that is teams have to pass a lot in the second half against them. So it's a lot of like positive game scripts where it's like teams are down 20 and they're running the ball against like Oren Burks playing linebacker for the 49ers. No shade at former Packer Oren Burks, but I'm just like, he was the first backup I could think of. And so like, I think it's a little off kilter there, but that's where DVOA comes in and adjusts for some of those meaningful reps things. Like, it is an okay run defense, whereas the passing defense is really good. Aaron Jones, this offense has been running well. And when I went back and watched some of the games, the Bengals game in particular, Joe Mixon ran the ball effectively in that game. Jerome Ford averaged 5 yards a carry in that game. I understand injuries were a part of those losses, but that's, to me, is if the Packers, I've always said that the Packers' best run defense is their offense. That was true with Aaron Rodgers, and they couldn't score in that 2019 game. And they couldn't score in the 2021 game. The reason that the Chiefs won is because they kept scoring and they kept the pressure on Kyle Shanahan to keep having to call passes. He forced Jimmy G at some point to have to make some 3rd and 8 throws. And they couldn't stop the running either. So I think if the Packers offense control the clock, it's going to be a similar script to last week where it's like, run the ball with Aaron Jones, control the clock, make a couple plays on third down, score early, and keep the 49ers in a little bit more pass-heavy run script, because more bad things can happen when they do that.
Predictions, guys. Croc, it's a 9-point line now. Start at 9.5. A little bit of money coming in on the Packers side. It's 9. The over-under is 50.5. So the odds makers do think there's going to be some points scored, and which means it's going to be a lot more fun than whatever the 5 degrees we saw when these teams played last time and missed kicks and blocked kicks, and a little bit more of a modern football game in this one. And if Purdy's throwing the ball, I have utmost confidence that he's going to be dealing out there, and the 49ers are going to Brock 30, as he has been called earlier on this season. The 49ers can put up those 30 points. So how many points did the Packers score? 30-21? That's 9 points. That would hit the spread.
Peter said that it was disrespectful. The 49ers were 9.5/9-point favorites. I don't think it's disrespectful enough. I think the 49ers are going to take this game 31-20.
You know what? It's funny. 31-20 was what I thought Croc would guess. I just was in my brain. I was like, he's going to say 31-20. I just know that that's what he's going to say. 20 just seems too low to me, the way that this offense is playing. Now, I could certainly see them, and we said this on the crossover last week. I can see a scenario where the 49ers win by double digits. No question. I've seen it. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen them do this. But it's also true that the last time these two teams played in the playoffs, Joe Barry had a really good plan for Kyle Shanahan. Now, I know, different quarterback, no Christian McCaffrey, but Debo was on a heater in that game. He was incredible that season. And that offense was a big reason why they were able to make that run as well. So is it that, or is it the defense that in that regular season, the 49ers scored 30 or whatever it was and needed Aaron Rodgers to make magic at the end? I think this is going to be closer than the odds makers think. I think this is more like 30-24, 31-27 even. I think the Packers cover. I think the 49ers win. And I'm going to take the over. I think there's going to be a lot of points in this one. I think it's going to be a really, really, really fun football game.
There is the X factor of the rain. Right now, it looks like rain might hit Friday, Sunday, maybe late overnight Saturday night. But
we want the rain. Green Bay wants the rain. They want it to be mucked up. They want Brock Purdy to be slipping all over with the ball. That's what they want. Jordan Love got those 10.25-inch hands. He's going to be fine. But you kind of hope Brock Purdy, because it was raining against the Ravens, right? That was like part of the thing. Like, oh, he's got one of the games they lost. I saw a lot of 49ers fans on Twitter like, oh, it was raining.
It was the
Browns game.
Yeah, it was the Cleveland Browns game, and Purdy did lead him down for the game-winning drive that Jake Moody, rookie kicker, missed the kick.
I remember.
And by the way, 9.25-inch hands, same exact hand size as Patrick Mahomes. So that's the hand size number for Brock Purdy.
All right, let's hear your prediction then, Peacock. Let's go.
I'm going to go with 41, Croc's old number that he used to wear on his back. 41-20, San Francisco 49ers winning big.
God, I hope not.
Upset, though, that Peter did not pick the Packers, because that would have really sealed it for the San Francisco 49ers. Peter, thanks. Great chatting with you, as always. Appreciate all the everydayers out there on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure everyone's subscribed up to Locked On Packers, Locked On 49ers, and, of course, we'll both be back post-game to break it all down right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.